Welcome back to this series where I predict every NFL team's record. We are now on part 6. That is the NFC South, and we're starting with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think it was 11-6 last year, and then lost an unlucky game in the wild card. They got the divisional doink here. No, I don't think that's it. I think the divisional doink was what happened to the Chiefs. So they go into this year hoping they can win the AFC South again. But in week 1, they have to run into one of their actual challengers, and that's the Atlanta Falcons, which is a loss. They beat Houston in Houston, which is a win. They beat the Jets in their home opener. Then they take on the Eagles, which is another win. At Seattle, that's a win. They host the Niners. I think the Niners just tend to have their number this year. They lose that game. Then they're at Detroit, which is a loss. Then they're at New Orleans, which is a win, so they're 5-3 heading into the bye week. They beat the Patriots in week 10, and then they beat Buffalo and Los Angeles. So now they're on like a tear. They're 8-3. They host the Cardinals and lose. They play Atlanta and win, and they play the Saints and win, but they do beat Atlanta the next week. They're at Carolina, and I think they lose that game. They beat Miami in week 17, and then the last game of the season at home versus Carolina, that's a win. 11-6 for Tampa Bay. And that challenger that the Bucs have is the Atlanta Falcons. Michael Penix actually looked great down the stretch in those last 3 games. Went 1-2, but he never got to touch the ball in overtime. And now week 1 for the Falcons, they host Tampa and win. They're at Minnesota, which is a win. Wait. Yeah, they lose to Minnesota, and then Carolina. They host the Commanders, and I think they lose that game too. So they're not off to the best start, but they do beat the Bills. Then they get a road win against San Francisco. They host the Dolphins, which is a loss. They're at the Patriots, which is a win. They host the Colts in, I think it's Germany, I don't remember. It's an international game, and I think they win that game. They host the Panthers and win. They're at New Orleans, which is another win. The Jets is going to be an upset loss. They host Seattle and win. Then they're at Tampa, which is a loss. At Arizona, which is another loss. They host the Rams on Monday Night Football, and I think they lose this game. Then they play the Saints in the final week of the season and win, so they go 9-8. But before we get to the New Orleans Saints, we have a quick word for the advertisement of my next video. It might not be my next video. In 2019, the Oklahoma City Thunder broke up their core of Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and Carmelo Anthony. They had CP3 and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and in 2020, they lost to Houston in the NBA bubble and traded CP. In 2021, they went 22-50, and the next year they won just 2 more games, but drafted Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams. In 2023, Shai averaged 31.4 points a game, but they lost in the 9-10 playing game. The next year, they won 57 games as the 1 seed, but lost to Dallas in 6 in the second round. In 2025, they won 68 games, swept Memphis, beat Denver, Minnesota, and the Indiana Pacers to win the NBA Finals. The Saints began the post-Eric Carr era with the loss to the Cardinals, then a loss to the Niners, then a loss in Seattle and in Buffalo. So that was a pretty rude start. They play the Giants, and I think they get their first win of the season. These are 2 teams where the term "there's only so many wins to go around" applies. And then they host the and lose. They go at Chicago, which is a loss. Host Tampa Bay, and I think that's another loss. They're in LA to play the Rams, which is a loss. At Carolina, that's a loss. So they're 1-9 heading into the bye week, but they get an upset win at home against the Falcons. They go at Miami and lose, at Tampa and lose, upset the Panthers, lose to the Jets, Titans, and then on the road again in the final week of the season against Atlanta. 3-14 is crazy work. This team probably won't even get the number 1 pick. Now for the Carolina Panthers. Last season didn't really start out well, but it finished pretty well for them, and I think this year might be good. They start week 1 in Jacksonville, which is a win. They lose in Arizona. They host the Falcons, and I think they lose that game. They're at the Patriots, which is another. No, they beat Atlanta. They're at the Patriots, which is another loss. They host the Dolphins and win. They lose to the Cowboys. And then they're at New York, at the New York Jets, and I think they win. They host the Bills and lose. At Green Bay is a loss. The Saints is probably a win. Then they're at Atlanta and lose. They're at San Francisco and win. CMC against his old team right there. Then they play the Rams and lose. So they head into the bye week at 6-7. No, please don't. Anyway, they play the Saints again and lose. They host Tampa and win. They host Seattle and win. But on the road in Tampa in the final week of the season, they take an L. So they go 8-9 this season, which is still improvement. Hopefully they keep Bryce Young around after this season because of the improvement that the Panthers are showing this season, assuming this is correct. All right, now we got the NBA Finals. We're starting with Game 5. We're starting with Game 5 where the Thunder won by about 11. Stop it! They went up a lot early, but late in the third quarter and fourth quarter, the Pacers got the lead down to as many as 2, despite the fact that Tyrese Halliburton became the first player since 1958 to be an All-NBA player and miss all his shots in a finals game. He looked pretty injured. 4 points on 0 of 7 shooting, I think it was. 0 of 7, which is insane. I picked the Pacers to win again, so yes, maybe it is me. Siakam had 28, but it wasn't a loss. SGA scored 31 points, but the leading scorer on the team was J-Dub, who dropped 40 points for the Thunder. And now for Game 6. It's Thursday night, 8:30 Eastern on ABC in Indiana. Stop it! First time I've ever seen an NBA Finals go past Game 6. Game 5. Ever seen a Finals that went past Game 5. And who do I got winning? I got the Indiana Pacers. Third time's the charm, guys. Trust. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.